act together here!
You're listening to KFI.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
KFI AM 640.
William, let's get an example here. Someone launches one of these things. One, we're going to know where the missile came from, aren't we? Or is this going to be something on some boat in the ocean?
Not necessarily. You just hit it. Recall 2 years ago, the Obama administration on September 17th, 2009, canceled the development of an ABM base in Poland. A horrible day to make that decision because that was also the anniversary, the 70th anniversary, when Poland was betrayed by the Soviet Union, which invaded them along with the Nazis. Now, that missile base was to protect those from a direct launch from Iran, which would have been detectable. There's been a lot written recently about Iran testing ship launching out in the middle of the Caspian Sea, doing vertical launches, get the rocket up 250 miles, detonate it, and then declare, oh, well, that one didn't work. All you need is a couple of cargo ships armed with some missiles in the Gulf of Mexico where we do not have in place advanced tracking systems. Do the launch, arc it up over the center of the United States, another one over the eastern United States, and you've taken us down. From time of launch to detonation, 5 to 7 minutes.
Jeez, that was my next question. That's it?
That's it.
What does the person on the ground see when this detonates?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Unless you are...
You don't feel the concussion? Nothing like that?
Well, first of all, with a detonation 250 miles up, there is no atmosphere to carry a blast concussion. You could very well see a flash of light, but at 250 miles, it's not going to damage your retina. But within that first second, anything that's electrically driven is just suddenly going to shut down. Now, we're not sure on the percentage of cars that could shut down. I've heard figures as low as 5%, as high as 95% from vehicles made after 1990. I'll tell you the bad place to be. You don't want to be on a commercial flight that day.
Why not?
Well, when Captain Sully, the great captain...
And we can't help that. You know, we either are or we aren't.
Now, when Sully, remember when the two bird the strike as he took off from LaGuardia, he still had power. All of your modern planes are computer-driven.
Oh.
Sully still had electrical systems that as he banked and turned the face onto the Hudson and bring that plane in, as he moved the stick, the computer drives actuated the ailerons, the elevator, rudder control. He still had control.
He had control still, yeah.
Now, I'm a pilot. I own an antique aircraft where when I pull and push my stick or kick my rudders, they're hooked to good old-fashioned wires that go out to your control surfaces.
You're almost doing it by hand.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
And it's cool. You're really flying by the seat of your pants.
So you're saying planes would drop out of the sky?
Airplanes today, the pilot pushes the stick, it's fed into a computer, which sends a signal to the hydraulic actuators, say, on the elevator, which then activate. There's no hard actual wire going from the stick anymore. Now, remember the incident with Air France a couple of years ago? Where it
was an Airbus, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I think it was a 330. I'm not sure. But almost all of it, next time you take a commercial flight, take a peek in the cockpit as you're going in.
Oh, sure. The way I look?
Yeah.
You know, I'm Lebanese, for crying out loud. I'm not going to look in the cockpit.
I find it's not healthy to ask too many questions about, gee, I'm a pilot. Can I look at this? No, go in your seat. But the scary part of that is you could have a Captain Sully sitting up front. We get hit by an EMP, and 1 second later, nothing works.
And you just drop.
You just drop like a rock.
And this would be every plane that's out there.
Not
of the big ones, commercial planes.
Yeah, almost all of our big current commercial planes that we're putting out are so computer-driven. I was just reading...
How many flights do we have up in the air at any time?
You can find that right online. Just Google up...
it's got to be thousands.
At any given moment during the daytime, there's about 2,500 to 3,000 commercial aircraft crisscrossing the United States. I was appalled when I read the first congressional study back in 2004 in which a person dismissing the threat of EMP was saying, at most we'll have a couple of thousand casualties. I would love to confront him and say, would you please rewrite that again while flying on a commercial aircraft? And a warning suddenly goes out that there's an EMP strike on the way.
Now, if this happens, and we take this kind of first strike, do we retaliate? But who do you retaliate against? If this is off some ship, some boat somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico or the Pacific Ocean, how in the heck do we know where it came from?
You hit it exactly, and it's a profound moral question. We might not even know who it came from, where it came from.
You can't take out the entire planet.
Well, okay, let's build a scenario. We have 2 launches coming off of the Gulf of Mexico, one off of the Pacific coast. About 10 minutes later, those ships blow up with somebody shouting Allah Akbar as they hit the detonators. The ships sink. How do we trace it out? Maybe that ship docked at a dozen different places from the time it initially acquired the weapon system.
Right.
Do you recall last year when a Russian cargo container ship disappeared for like 8 or 10 days?
Yeah.
And here we are with all our modern surveillance equipment and satellites and everything.
Couldn't find it.
We couldn't find the bloody thing for 10 days.
Did we ever find that airliner that disappeared?
Yes.
We did.
They finally found the cockpit recorders. There was just a print up on it a couple.
It was a 737 or something like that, wasn't it?
Oh no! Are we talking about the Air France one?
No, there was a Boeing plane that just disappeared. Not with people on it. With the plane just disappeared.
I have not.
I got to go back and dig that information up. It was a couple years ago.
That bothers me. I have not heard about that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Before we went to the break, you mentioned what happens in that first second. It's going to be aircraft plummeting. And then the whole electrical grid is offline. You definitely do not want to be in an elevator 80 stories up.
Oh, yeah. Then you're up a creek there, too. What about our defenses?
Oh, that is a tough classified question to ask and answer. I have to always emphasize, I deal strictly with declassified, unclassified information. I go to a lot of conferences. DOD's invited me to a couple of different places. I've been at the War College, but very strict. I simply work off of unclassified information. So I cannot give you a clear answer as to our military assets here in the United States.
By the way, it was a Boeing 737 disappeared in Mumbai, the old Bombay.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? It happened about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It's gone. Nobody knows where it is. Somebody's got it. Somebody took it.
Somebody's got it, and who knows what the hell they're loading on to.
Exactly.
The assets we have overseas in terms of a military event against the continental United States would still be there. And to try and answer your other question, what do we do back? Let's say we trace it back to Iran. Do we annihilate?
And do you believe anybody when they say that? See, there's that possibility, too. Mm-hmm. That they blame someone else so they can create a war. Who knows? I mean, I don't trust anybody anymore, will you?
Neither do I. And listening to your program helps me with that.
I mean, would we, when I say we, this covert government that's out there, would they do this to us? These globalists who would love to see problems?
I couldn't answer that. I can say that with a military event, the shattering of the United States and our infrastructure and the projection of 90% of all Americans dead within a year, and that is one hell of a grim number.
Oh, my God.
Realistic. Think of the economic, political, social, military power vacuum, and then the global confusion that's going to trigger afterwards. Nature abhors a vacuum. That type of political vacuum, think of how that's going to resonate around the world in the first couple of days.
Well, if someone takes us out, then I think there would also be this is how militarily I look at things. Somebody would then attack our allies instantly.
Of course.
Yeah. And then we'd know where it came from, but it'd be a little too late for us. Unless we still have some capability in some bunker somewhere.
I have a character in my novel that I developed this as a novel to try and get the word out. And it's been a bestseller for a couple of years.
Should be a movie.
We're working on that right now.
Okay.
And about halfway, two-thirds of the way through the novel, some word gets into the village where people are dying like flies at this point about, well, we think these guys did it, and, do we plaster the hell out of them? To which this character responds back, does that change anything here?
Yeah.
Does that save the lives we've lost? Does that provide medication for my daughter now? Does that change anything? We've lost. EMP is a war-winning, destructive system in which America could lose its position in 1 second and never regain it.
Is there a possibility, William, that technically an EMP pulse bomb would not do this?
Everything I have seen says it's beyond what we think it might be. There are two declassified, documented detonations of EMP weapons. You can Google them up. One is Starfish, it's, one word, Starfish Prime, which was a detonation 500 miles south of Hawaii in the early 1960s that blew out a 1960s overbuilt power grid system in a fair part of the Hawaiian Islands. The other one, as I mentioned earlier, is Soviet Test 1A2, which was blowing out a power plant 500 miles away from the point of detonation. Now, consider how overbuilt our electronics, our automobiles, our power grid was in 1960 as compared to the highly delicate, computerized-driven systems we have today. That the slightest power fluctuation can burn it. We're far more vulnerable now than we've ever been before.
I can't believe that there's no one in Congress anymore other than the people you've dealt with who are doing this and pushing this and trying to get something done. How possible is it to insulate the grid?
Congressman Bartlett has pointed out, and let me add a great point of frustration here. Bartlett has a wonderful team of people working around him. One of my heroes is Dr. Peter Pry, who has spent 30 years studying this. They spent 5 years developing a bill that went up a year and a half ago to start the hardening, at least creating the bureaucratic infrastructure.
Right.
It passed the House unanimously. Now, we're talking about a very divided House 2 years ago. Boom, went right through. Went from committee, unanimous pass, then had to go to the Senate, and one senator killed the bill because it didn't have the perks for her state that she wanted.
Oh.
One senator. And you almost had to hit the delete button.
What perks did she want? Did she want a better insulated grid in her state, or what?
She just wanted more for the state of Alaska.
Jeez.
Yeah, you almost had to hit the button like Fortune's about to have a Tourette moment. When she did that, she burned out 5 years' worth of work.
Gone.
You know how much it costs to try and get a bill even passed.
Oh, I know it.
Millions and millions of dollars.
What about the word nationwide, mainstream media, TV, network news, cable television? Are they touching this? I don't see it.
They touch it, but frustratingly, it is so bloody inaccurate most of the time. In your own programming, you have some people raising some very, very serious, valid issues on a number of different fronts.
Yeah.
But then you have somebody that comes along with just some wild, cockeyed idea, not even on your show, but somewhere else, and everybody points in that person's direction, goes, oh, you just dismissed the whole thing.